Marilene Rodrigues, a 42-year-old teacher, recounts two near-death experiences she had in her hometown. The term NDE only made sense to her after she started watching videos on the subject in 2020. Before that, she did not understand what had happened and had difficulty talking about her experiences. In two transitions to the other side, on a path that we all will face at some point, she is surprised to find that it is a very pleasant place, to the point of feeling a great longing, and that our true life is there, not only our lives, but also the lives of those we love. There, she meets her brother, who gives her an important message. Hello, I'm Marcus, and it's a pleasure to welcome you here to Beyond the Life We Live. I hope you feel at home and absorb the lesson from this story that we are about to tell. While you're here, please like and subscribe to the channel, as it is very important to us and helps us bring new and impactful stories to you. At the time of the first experience, she was young, and her older siblings were her main playmates. Although their mother did not like them playing outside because she worked all day and could not supervise them, Marilene insisted on going outside to play. As a result, she stepped on large nails that were in a yard next to her house. She describes the pain as intense, and with no one around, not even her siblings, she fainted. Marilene believed she had only fainted, but during that moment, her first NDE was occurring. She did not see herself leaving her body, nor did she see her body there, but she felt as if she was being transported from one situation to another. Suddenly, she was in a strange place where she encountered beings that had an unpleasant tone of voice to her. Although she did not like them or the place, she did not categorize them as good or bad. She simply did not know how to define what was happening. When she arrived there, they were talking among themselves, but at one point, one of them addressed her and said that if she did not like that place, she should obey her mother, even in the simplest things. And no matter how simple something seemed, she should always follow what her mother asked. Otherwise, she would have to return to that place again. Marilene mentions that the tone of their voices bothered her, but there was not exactly a dialogue. She only understood what they were saying. Then one of the beings told her that she would become a role model for many children, that she needed to be different, and therefore she should obey. She now reflects that at the time, she never imagined she would become a teacher, as that was never her desire. When she was 17, she attempted to study law but did not finish. Then she tried pharmacy, and only later did she enter pedagogy, without being sure she wanted to be a teacher. Today, however, she understands that her profession is more than just a job. It is a life mission that was destined for her since birth. Soon after this conversation with the beings, Marilene says she returned to her body immediately and was soon helped. After this event, she was unable to walk properly for a long time due to the injury, and from time to time, her mother would repeat that it was the consequence of her disobedience and that she could have died. Years later, going into the second NDE, which she considers the most significant, it happened when she was very troubled by her appearance and height, which remains a source of dissatisfaction for her. Marilene was with her cousin and her sister. While making her laugh, her cousin ended up choking, and when he tried to ask for help, he couldn't. Her cousin, not understanding what was happening, thought she was joking, and her sister, in turn, went into shock and did not react while she watched. Then she felt as if she were leaving her body, comparing the sensation to taking off a dress over her head. Soon she found herself above the house, observing the roof. Curiously, she noticed that she no longer had a body. She compared it to becoming energy or some kind of field. Although it felt strange, it seemed very natural to her, and she believes it is what we call the soul. Interestingly, Marilene did not question what she was doing up there or how she got there. Instead, she marveled at the view she saw, including the neighbors' roofs. She then began to rise rapidly towards the sky, reaching the first clouds, noticing that despite ascending, each cloud seemed to be at a different height. At this point, Marilene hears her mother's voice. It was as if someone had turned up the volume so she could hear. Her mother was desperately pleading for her life. Interestingly, although she recognized the voice as her mother's, she heard it differently, as if it were on a different frequency. Initially, she did not understand the reason for such desperation and mentally wondered why there was so much commotion. However, her mother's cry made her want to return to see what was happening. She remembers that during the moment she was on the roof, she still had awareness of who she was, that her mother, sister, and cousin were below. However, as she ascended to the clouds, this awareness was completely lost. No longer remembering who she was or who those people were. When she returned to observe the scene, Marilene was also unaware that the body was hers. While observing everything, not knowing it was her, Marilene focused on analyzing herself. She saw herself as beautiful, admiring her hair and body, finding no faults. Today, she understands that it seemed like her consciousness was conducting a deep reflection on her appearance. She questioned why she felt dissatisfied with something she had chosen for herself, her height, her body, and even her hair. Additionally, Marilene reflected on the clothes she wore, not valuing her true self. She notes that her reflections were not harsh criticisms, but rather a form of self-awareness where she perceived that her soul or consciousness had a broader and higher perspective of herself than when she was in her physical body. It was as if outside the body, she could see a truer version of herself, different from the small and flawed version she usually perceived in daily life. Although in physical life, we often make excuses and justifications for our choices, in that elevated state, she realized she saw everything with more clarity and without excuses. The reflection was direct and true. Then she felt transported to a new place, finding herself in a yard with a tree that reminded her of a tree from her childhood home, which had been cut down by a neighbor when she was between 6 and 7 years old. She also remembers how, in times of hardship, especially when they were hungry, she and her sister would find some fruit on the ground, a fruit that would satisfy their hunger for a long time, and she recalls how those few fruits helped end their hunger. Upon having this memory, surprisingly, the tree begins to talk to her. This was the highlight of her experience, where she felt deep feelings of love, tenderness, and care, something she describes as the most sublime moment of the entire experience. What she heard from the tree was that although it did not usually bear fruit, the tree explained that in times of need, food would always appear as a provision. This conversation with the tree brought a clear message. Provision is always present, whether through a tree or anything else. Marilene felt that this was a way for God to show care and affection for people. Marilene felt loved and surrounded by feelings of love from the tree and understood that someone was communicating with her through that tree. Then she encountered a man, and at that moment, she understood that the man was there to take her back home. Without any verbal conversation, she knew he was her brother, who had died at the age of 10. The bond between Marilene and her brother had always been strong, even though he had passed away when she was still a baby. She recalls how he always took care of her, showing special affection. Now, in her experience, she understood that he was still taking care of her, realizing that her brother was there to guide her back to life. She did not question his wish, but also did not want to return. However, her brother silently explained that they would meet again someday. But for now, he could not stay. Feeling a mix of sadness and acceptance, reluctantly, she agreed to return to her physical reality. Then she felt her body being pulled back into her. The sensation was similar to the impact of an airplane touching down, that sudden jolt, until she started to hear the people around her. After this experience, she was completely exhausted from having been inactive for some time, so when she returned, she felt extreme weakness. When she asked if she had been asleep for a long time, her mother replied that yes, she must have dreamt during that time. However, it was not until 2020 that she truly understood what had happened. That life is just a passage to a phase change, and there is much more life out there beyond the life we live. And those who love us take care of us and protect us, helping us achieve the necessary evolution to meet them again on the other side at the end of our journeys.